My name is Kendall Price. I'm 22 years old, and this is my true story. This really happened to me, and it completely changed my life. I once trusted someone deeply, but what they did to me was so shocking, so terrifying that I'm still haunted by it. Today, I want you to know how betrayal can come from the people you love the most. What started as something small soon turned into a nightmare I never imagined. If you really want to know how it all happened, then stay with me till the very end, because my story will leave you speechless. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And remember, this story is written and edited by Dark Lifeside Diaries. I grew up in a small but cozy town where everyone knew everyone and friendships were treated like lifelines because we didn't have the luxury of big city anonymity. We held on to the people around us as if they were family, and for me that person was my best friend. Someone I'll call Alyssa, though that wasn't her real name. But trust me, you wouldn't want to know who she really is, because she still walks among people pretending to be innocent, pretending to be trustworthy, when deep down she's a monster wearing a mask of sweetness. Alyssa and I met in high school, when we were both just 15, sitting together in an English class, sharing the same sarcastic comments about boring poems and rolling our eyes whenever the teacher asked us to analyze metaphors, and somehow we instantly clicked as though we were meant to be in each other's lives. And over time our bond grew stronger than I ever thought possible, to the point where we shared everything: close secrets, crushes, dreams, and even fears. I trusted her with things I never even told my own family. Things about my depression, my insecurities, and the dark corners of my mind that I didn't think anyone else could ever understand. But she listened and made me feel safe, or at least I thought she did, because behind that comforting smile and those sympathetic eyes there was something brewing, something sinister that I couldn't recognize until it was too late. For years, Alyssa was my person, the one who stayed up late on calls when I was crying, the one who showed up at my house when I felt alone, the one who swore to me that she'd never hurt me, and I believed her with every fiber of my being. But I was blind, so blind, because the truth is that sometimes the people who stand closest to you are the ones who sharpen the knife behind your back, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And my moment came when we were both in college, living in the same off-campus apartment, thinking we were unstoppable together, two best friends chasing their dreams in a new city, celebrating every little achievement with cheap pizza and late-night laughter. But little did I know that behind those laughs, Alyssa was hiding a growing jealousy, a darkness that had taken root inside her. Because while I was excelling in my classes and had landed an internship that made me hopeful for the future, Alyssa was struggling, barely passing, drowning in self-pity. And instead of leaning on me for help like a true friend, she began resenting me quietly, secretly, until her resentment turned into something dangerous. At first, it was little things I didn't notice: my favorite dress going missing, my phone charger mysteriously broken, whispers behind my back from people we both knew, rumors that seemed to come out of nowhere. And though I brushed it off as coincidence, there was a nagging feeling deep inside that told me something wasn't right. But I ignored it, because who wants to believe that their best friend, their other half, could be capable of cruelty? I chose to trust her even when strange things kept happening, like how one night I came home and found my diary slightly out of place on my desk, even though I knew I had left it in a different drawer, or how my passwords mysteriously stopped working until I reset them, or how Alyssa would sometimes stare at me a little too long, not with love, but with something colder, something calculating, something that made chills crawl down my spine. But every time I confronted her, she laughed it off, saying I was being paranoid. And I wanted so badly to believe her that I convinced myself I was imagining things. But then came the night everything shifted. It was late in October, the air crisp with the smell of fallen leaves, and Alyssa suggested we throw a Halloween party at our apartment, just for a few friends, just to unwind and have fun. And I agreed, because I thought it would be harmless. But I didn't realize that it was all part of her plan, the beginning of the nightmare that would consume my life. The night started innocently enough, with music, laughter, and costumes, but then I noticed that some people at the party were staring at me strangely, whispering behind their drinks, giving me looks that burned holes in my confidence. And when I asked Alyssa about it, she brushed it off again, claiming I was just being self-conscious. But the stares continued, and later that night, when the crowd thinned and I went to check my phone, I found dozens of missed calls and angry texts from people I barely knew, accusing me of things I didn't understand, calling me names I couldn't bear to repeat. And my heart raced as I tried to figure out what was happening. But before I could even ask Alyssa, I heard someone mention a video that had been spreading like wildfire across campus, and when I searched for it, my blood turned to ice because on the screen was me, or at least it looked like me in a compromising situation that I knew had never happened. A video so humiliating, so vile that it felt like my entire world shattered in an instant. My hands shook, tears blurred my vision, and I couldn't breathe as I realized what this meant, that someone had faked this, edited this, to destroy me and the only person who had access to my personal files. My private photos, my laptop, was Alyssa. I turned to look at her, and for the first time, I saw it clearly, the smirk, the satisfaction in her eyes as she pretended to be shocked along with everyone else. The way her lips curled ever so slightly, as if she was feeding off my pain, and my stomach dropped because I understood in that moment that my best friend, the girl I had trusted with my life, was the one who had betrayed me in the most horrifying way possible. And while everyone else at the party whispered and judged, Alyssa just stood there smiling as if she had finally won. But what I didn't know then was that this was just the beginning, just the first crack in a nightmare that would only grow darker, because Alyssa's betrayal wasn't just about humiliation. It was about destruction, about taking everything from me until there was nothing left. And as I stood frozen in that apartment, my entire reputation crumbling in front of my eyes, I had no idea that the real horror was only beginning, that Alyssa's plan was far from over, and that what she had in store for me would make that fake video seem like nothing compared to the terror that was about to unfold. After that night, my life began to unravel faster than I could hold it together, and the worst part was that no matter how much I tried to explain that the video wasn't real, that it was fabricated, no one seemed to believe me, because the images looked too convincing, the timing too perfect, and Alyssa, my so-called best friend, was right there pretending to defend me with half-hearted words while secretly fueling the flames behind closed doors. It felt like I had woken up in a nightmare where everyone I thought I could trust turned their backs on me. Professors who once respected me now looked at me with disappointment. Friends who had laughed with me at lunch tables suddenly avoided me in the hallways, and whispers followed me everywhere I went, whispers that cut deeper than knives, words like slut, fake, pathetic, clinging to me until they felt like my identity. And though I tried to fight back, posting online, pleading with people to see the truth, it was useless, because the louder I screamed my innocence, the more people mocked me. And Alyssa made sure of that, creating fake accounts to spread rumors, dropping subtle hints in conversations, twisting everything I said until it became a weapon against me. I couldn't escape her reach because she lived with me, breathed the same air as me, and while she pretended to be supportive when others were around, I saw the glimmer of victory in her eyes every time I came back to the apartment broken and crying, and she relished it. She thrived on my suffering, and though I didn't want to believe she could be this cruel, the evidence was everywhere. She'd gone through my laptop, stolen personal photos of me, and vulnerable moments, altered them, and made them part of that disgusting video, and yet she acted innocent, as though she was my savior, telling me to ignore the haters, telling me to rise above it, when I knew she was the one throwing me into the fire. Weeks passed and my life only grew darker. I started skipping classes because I couldn't stand the stares. My grades slipped. My internship pulled back their offer because they didn't want someone with a reputation issue. And slowly but surely, everything I had worked for, every piece of my future, was slipping out of my hands like sand through a sieve. And Alyssa watched it all, smiling behind her mask, pretending to comfort me when in reality she was tightening the noose around my life. And I started to feel trapped, like I was suffocating in a world that no longer wanted me. Nights became the worst because that's when the fear crept in the strongest. I'd lie awake hearing whispers through the walls, convinced Alyssa was on the phone spreading more lies about me, and sometimes I'd catch her staring at me from her bed across the room with this eerie calm, like she was studying me, waiting for me to completely break. And though I wanted to confront her, I was terrified of what she might do if I did, because if she was capable of ruining my life with a fake video, what else was she capable of? I began locking my belongings, hiding my passwords, sleeping with my phone under my pillow. But somehow she always found a way around it, always one step ahead, and I started questioning my own sanity, wondering if maybe I was imagining how far she had gone. But then something happened that erased all doubt. One evening I came home after forcing myself to attend a study group, and I noticed the faint smell of smoke. Panicking, I rushed into our apartment and found my desk drawer slightly ajar, the one where I kept old journals and letters, and sitting on top was a small pile of ash, like paper had been burned, and my heart sank because I realized Alyssa had destroyed something. Private, irreplaceable memories, and though she denied it when I asked, swearing she hadn't touched anything. Her smirk betrayed her, and I knew she was gaslighting me, trying to make me feel crazy, trying to strip me of even the smallest things that grounded me. And it worked, because I started spiraling, isolating myself, barely eating, barely sleeping, and Alyssa became the only constant in my life. The one person always there watching, feeding on my despair, and I couldn't escape her. But the torment didn't stop there. It escalated. Strange things began happening in the apartment. The shower would suddenly run cold, even when I hadn't touched the knobs. Footsteps echoed in the hall. When no one was there, doors creaked open at night. And I'd wake up to find small, unexplainable scratches on my arms, like someone had been hovering over me as I slept, marking me. And when I showed Alyssa, she just shrugged, claiming I was sleepwalking, planting that seed of doubt in my mind again. But deep down I knew she was behind it, manipulating my environment to make me feel insane. And the scariest part was how convincing she was, how easily she could twist reality until even I wasn't sure what was real anymore. The climax of her cruelty came one night when I was alone studying and my laptop screen suddenly flickered. At first I thought it was a glitch, but then a video popped up, not the old one, but a new one, showing me sleeping in my own bed, recorded from within the apartment. And my blood ran cold as I realized someone had been filming me, watching me, invading the last shred of privacy I had left. And when I turned in horror toward Alyssa's side of the room, she was leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed, smiling. And in that moment, the mask slipped completely. I saw the darkness in her, the twisted satisfaction, and she whispered, "No one will ever believe you, Kendall," not over me, before walking away like nothing had happened, leaving me trembling, clutching my chest, wondering how I had let a monster so close to me that night. I knew with certainty that Alyssa wasn't just trying to humiliate me, she was trying to erase me, to strip away my identity, my sanity, my life. And the worst part was that no one else saw it, no one else believed me, because she was too good at hiding her true self, too good at playing the perfect friend. Wow. I looked like the unstable one falling apart, and as I sat alone in the darkness, rocking back and forth, I realized that if I didn't find a way out, if I didn't find a way to stop her, Alyssa wouldn't stop, until there was nothing left of me, until I was just a ghost of who I used to be. And with that realization came a chilling truth. The only way to survive was to fight back, but I didn't yet know how, and the clock was ticking. Because every day I stayed in that apartment with her, every night I fell asleep under the same roof, I felt her closing in tighter, and I could almost hear her whispering in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to destroy me completely. The moment I realized Alyssa wasn't going to stop until she completely destroyed me, something inside me began to shift, like a survival instinct I didn't even know I had was clawing its way to the surface, telling me that if I wanted to make it out of this alive, mentally, emotionally, maybe even physically, I needed to stop being her victim and start figuring out how to fight back. But it wasn't easy, because by this point she had isolated me so thoroughly, but I had no one to turn to, no friends who believed me, no professors who would listen, no family who understood why I sounded so paranoid on the phone, because every time I tried to explain what was happening, Alyssa found ways to twist the story and make me look unstable. And sometimes even I questioned myself, wondering if maybe I was just imagining the scratches on my arms, the missing belongings, the whispers at night. But then I would remember the video, the one of me sleeping, and that cold certainty would return, reminding me that I wasn't crazy, that Alyssa was truly dangerous, and I needed to prove it. So I began paying closer attention, watching her in the same way she watched me, noting her patterns, her movements, when she left the apartment, when she returned, what she carried in her bag. And though it terrified me to study her like this, I knew I needed evidence if I ever wanted anyone to believe me. And soon enough I started to find small cracks in her perfect facade, receipts hidden in her drawer for software I didn't recognize, late-night deliveries she signed for but never explained, a locked box under her bed that rattled faintly when moved, things that screamed secrets. And every discovery fueled my determination, but the more I dug, the more Alyssa seemed to sense it, because she escalated her torment, making the apartment feel less like a home and more like a prison. I'd wake up to find the kitchen cabinets open, every dish and cup stacked precariously as if daring me to touch them, or I'd come home to the sound of my own voice echoing from her laptop speakers, audio clips I never recorded, twisted versions of things I'd said spliced together to sound incriminating. And when I confronted her, she just smiled, tilting her head like a predator studying its prey, whispering things like, "No one's coming for you, Kendall," before walking away, leaving me trembling but more determined than ever to turn the tables. I started small, hiding a cheap camera I bought secondhand from a pawn shop in the corner of our shared bedroom. aiming it at my desk, but I knew she kept tampering with my things, and within days my suspicion was confirmed. I watched the footage in horror as Alyssa in the middle of the night crept to my desk, rummaged through my drawers, and held my diary up to the camera with a twisted smile before slipping it back in place, her eyes glinting with malicious glee. And though the footage was grainy, it was enough proof to confirm that I wasn't imagining it, that she really was invading every inch of my privacy, and that I needed to be careful because if she discovered I was documenting her, she would retaliate. In ways I couldn't even predict, the footage gave me strength, but it also filled me with dread because it proved just how bold she had become, how little fear she had of being caught. And as the days went on, I realized she was escalating toward something bigger, something final, because her behavior grew stranger, more erratic. She'd stand in the living room in the middle of the night, staring out the window for hours, muttering under her breath words I couldn't catch, or she'd laugh to herself when she thought I wasn't watching, a laughter so hollow and wrong that it made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up, and I started to wonder if her obsession with destroying me had pushed her beyond cruelty and into madness. Then came the night that proved I was running out of time. I woke to find her standing over me, just standing there watching me breathe, her face shadowed in the dim glow of the streetlight outside, and when I jolted awake, she didn't move, didn't flinch, just whispered, "You'll never leave me," before walking away, leaving my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. And in that moment, I understood something terrifying. Alyssa didn't just want to ruin me socially, she wanted to own me, to control me, to erase the life I had outside of her until I was nothing but her possession, broken and dependent, and maybe worse. That realization ignited a fire in me because I knew I couldn't keep waiting for her next move. I had to act, but every step I took had to be calculated because one wrong move and she'd destroy me completely. I began transferring files off my laptop onto a hidden USB, backing up the camera footage, the receipts, anything that pointed to her manipulation. And I hid it in places she wouldn't think to look, taped under a drawer, slipped inside a hollow shampoo bottle, because I knew she searched my things constantly and I couldn't risk her finding it. And though living like this felt like walking on glass, I forced myself to endure, telling myself that if I could just hold out long enough, I'd have enough proof to expose her. But Alyssa must have sensed my quiet rebellion because her behavior grew darker still. She started locking her bedroom door at night, and I could hear the faint scratching of pen on paper as though she was writing something obsessively. And once I caught a glimpse of her journal lying open on the counter, pages filled with my name written over and over, surrounded by disturbing phrases like "break her" and "she belongs to me." And when she realized I'd seen it, her face contorted into something so venomous, so inhuman, that I felt my blood freeze, and she slammed the book shut without a word, the silence between us heavier than any scream. That was when I realized the line between obsession and hatred had blurred completely for her, and I was living with someone who no longer saw me as a friend or even as a person, but as an object of control, a project of destruction. And the walls of the apartment began to feel like the bars of a cage I couldn't escape. I became hyper-aware, my senses always on edge, every sound magnified, every shadow suspicious, and yet I held on, clinging to the hope that if I could gather just a little more evidence, I could finally be free. But the truth is, Alyssa was always one step ahead, and she wasn't going to let me go so easily, because just as I was beginning to plan my escape, she made her move, one that would push me past fear and into the darkest decision of my life, one that would make me realize that survival sometimes demands a kind of revenge I never thought I was capable of. And as I stared into the cold eyes of the girl I once called my best friend, I knew the nightmare wasn't ending yet. It was only reaching its peak. The night Alyssa finally made her move was the night I understood that everything I had endured, the humiliation, the whispers, the fake video, the invasion of my privacy, had only been a prelude to something far more sinister, because this time she wasn't trying to break me socially, she was trying to break me physically, maybe even permanently. And though I had prepared myself in small ways, hiding evidence, planning escape routes, nothing could have prepared me for what she was truly capable of. It happened on a Friday evening when the campus was buzzing with parties, the kind of night when everyone was distracted, and I had just returned to our apartment after spending hours in the library pretending to study, but really just trying to breathe in peace away from her suffocating presence. But when I walked through the door, the apartment was unusually silent, almost staged, and the air felt heavy like the calm before a storm. And my stomach twisted with dread because I knew she was waiting. Sure enough, as I set my bag down, Alyssa emerged from her room, but there was something different in her eyes. This time, no fake smile, no mask of concern, just raw, unfiltered hatred. and a manic gleam that made her look almost possessed, and before I could speak she said in a voice so cold it felt like knives slicing through me, "You should have left when you had the chance, Kendall." My heart pounded as I backed away, but she followed slow and deliberate, and in her hand I noticed the glint of something metallic, a kitchen knife, long and sharp, and the realization hit me like ice water. Alyssa wasn't just trying to ruin my life anymore, she wanted to end it. Panic surged through me as I stumbled into the living room, my mind racing for options, and she advanced with the knife, taunting me with words that echoed like a nightmare. "You took everything from me, the attention, the success, the future that should have been mine, and now I'll take everything from you." I tried to reason with her, my voice shaking, telling her she was wrong, that none of this was true, but she wasn't listening. She was too far gone, consumed by obsession and rage, and I realized that nothing I said could pull her back from the darkness she had embraced. My only choice was survival. I dashed toward the door, but she lunged, the knife grazing my arm as I shoved her aside, pain searing through me, and I ran for the hallway, but she was fast, too fast, grabbing my hair and yanking me backwards, slamming me to the ground with a strength I didn't know she had, and as I hit the floor dazed and bleeding, she raised the knife above me, her face twisted into something unrecognizable. And for a split second I thought it was over, that my story would end on that apartment floor, another headline, another forgotten victim. But then something inside me snapped, the fear, the humiliation, the months of torment, it all boiled into a raw, desperate rage, and I refused to let her win with every ounce of strength I had left. I kicked out, knocking her off balance, the knife clattering across the floor, and I scrambled to my feet, adrenaline fueling me as I lunged for the weapon first, grabbing it with shaking hands just as she charged again, her nails clawing at my skin, her screams filling the apartment like the cries of something inhuman. And in that moment, I realized there was no reasoning, no escape, only one choice: fight or die. The struggle was brutal, chaotic, filled with sobs and screams, until finally I did the unthinkable. I turned the knife against her, plunging it forward in blind desperation, and the sound that followed will haunt me forever, the gasp that escaped her lips, the look of shock in her eyes as she stumbled backward, clutching her side, collapsing to the floor with blood pooling beneath her. And in the silence that followed, broken only by my ragged breathing, I realized what I had done. I had killed the girl who was once my best friend, the girl who had turned into my worst nightmare. My hands trembled as the knife slipped from my grip, clattering against the tile, and tears blurred my vision as I stared at her motionless body, my mind screaming that it was over, that I was finally free, but my heart breaking at the thought of how it had come to this, how someone I once loved like a sister had pushed me to such darkness. But survival has no mercy, and when the police arrived, alerted by the neighbors who heard the struggle, the evidence spoke for itself. The hidden camera footage, the altered videos, the obsessive journal entries, all of it painted the truth of who Alyssa really was. And though I was taken in for questioning my story, held, and for once people finally believed me, the whispers stopped, the rumors faded, and slowly, painfully, I began to reclaim my life. But the scars remain on my arm, on my heart, on my soul, constant reminders of how close I came to losing everything, and how sometimes the people who claim to love you the most are the ones who want to see you destroyed. And now, even as I tell you this, I can still feel her presence in the shadows, still hear her laughter echoing in my nightmares, because when you survive someone like Alyssa, they never really leave you. They linger in the corners of your mind, reminding you of the darkness that hides behind familiar faces, waiting for the right moment to strike again.